Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to another installment of Show to Be with Mike G, the show of life, the show of San Francisco, food pairing, being in tech, and Whiskies of the World. That's right. Today we're talking with the event director and coordinator of Whiskies of the World, Austin, Houston, and so many other instances, Mr. Douglas Smith, the guy who runs the show. I've had the pleasure of sitting on a panel and judging whiskey for Whiskies of the World for about 4 years straight now, and it's one of the greatest experiences I've had in my professional booze-related career, and Douglas is the man who made this all happen. He comes from tech, he enjoys food, and he had a profound moment with whiskey that brought him to be the event director for Whiskies of the World. There is yet another installment this Saturday in Houston. Lots of great faces, lots of great masterclasses, and you better believe there'll be a lot of great whiskey. I'll include some of the ticket information in the link today. So without further ado, I hope you guys enjoy this great chat with Douglas Smith.
Fun to meet strange people or strangers in the bar and talk to them
Strange is a good word. I don't find Jeremy strange, but he's a very interesting guy.
Well, no, not yeah, but I mean, sitting at the bar, there's always
the randomness
next to you.
of it?
There's the randomness. Some guy who's owning a bunch of companies related to movies, to rappers, music, and
It's kind of nice. It's one of the fun pieces of this industry.
Mm-hmm.
Do you there's lots of things to talk about. Of course, you're in town for the Whiskies of the World, which we'll touch on quite a bit here in a moment. But the traveling piece, being a guy that's around booze and getting to be kind of just around and introduced all these random people all over the place. Do you like that kind of thing, traveling and talking?
Well, I do like that, and the thing about the whiskey is, in order to enjoy it, you got to have a developed palate. So you're not just talking to drinkers. You're not talking to somebody who drinks vodka. So you've got a little bit more developed palate, and so there's a little more depth to it in general for people who can really enjoy the whiskey, aren't just shooting it.
Yeah, that's a good point. You think the conversations are better with people that are drinking whiskey?
Yeah, I think there's more depth to whiskey drinkers.
Yeah.
I mean, to properly enjoy whiskey, once you've gotten that, you got to take your time. You've got to, get the flavors, the intensity, but the subtleness. So you have to take time to appreciate it. Therefore, it just, to enjoy the aromas, the flavors, the intensity, see how those combine with, I always like introducing people to how this works with food. A lot of people have no idea how well, or the new dimensions of sensory perception you get when you start combining it with food, and then showing people how I combine it with food. So everyone's palate, everybody works a little bit different. And so, I like to share my experience, how it works for me, but everyone has to kind of figure out what works for them also.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's always different. You talk about whiskeys, there's many scotches, for instance, that can be polarizing. You talk about that peat factor, not necessarily for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What's something that not the whiskey part itself, but something you think's a good food that you could drink various types of whiskeys with, and it really will help bring out some of those flavors?
Well, it's not something that's fun is pineapple, strawberries.
Pineapple, really?
There's a contrast there. There's the acidity and the sweetness, and then contrasting with the bourbon or the malt, and that's a fun one. It's like, wow, really?
That is an interesting one, yeah.
Because it's always philosophy in life. You can't knock it till you try it at least once.
That's true, yeah. Does that fancy you a very adventurous person then?
Yeah, yes. So I talk about. So you go to a restaurant. Yeah. Maybe the chef was sick. Maybe it was the busboy that night. And every sitcom has at least one bad episode. What is that? That was the first episode you saw.
Yeah.
So you got to give most things a second chance
That's
before
a
you
great
knock
point.
it.
Yeah. So speaking, kind of stepping out larger beyond whiskey, then you're pretty much an optimistic guy. You say, well, I'll give anything a chance, and I believe it'll probably turn out okay.
Just realized, there's always that off day. There's always something that goes wrong. So you can't knock it till you try it at least twice. There's always exceptions to the rule.
There absolutely is. Are you interested in, so, whiskey is a very social thing. You talk about food. That's a great way to kind of expand that conversation. But just being out there, people in general, hospitality, do you find yourself a guy that likes people, diving into how they work, what their lives have been like?
I like to learn from other people's experiences, see, where they came from, it's kind of a fun thing with Uber drivers. Always getting to know who Uber is, why are they driving Uber, and where they came from, their experiences in the world. Where was I? What town? I met a gentleman from the West Bank.
Oh, no kidding.
And he was having a rough time, businesses, but his perspective on America was just, the opportunity so much. Right. He's happy to be here from other places, despite his current difficulties with his business.
Yeah.
It's definitely fun to see other people's perspectives in the world.
And it helps. I think, you meet people like that. Sometimes maybe our close group of friends, maybe they're having a hard time, maybe business isn't going well, their relationships or whatnot. But I feel like that optimism just kind of, even if it's in something as random as an Uber drive or at a bar, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are those people that inspire us, just a little bit, a little of that spark,
It's always good to know, hey, your life's not so bad after all.
I can see it like this, and it's nice to kind of expand things out. Well, so this whole journey, one of the things that was interesting, and I don't talk too much about my personal career and stuff on the show, and I will continue not to, but we have that common thread in that we have some experience with tech. And is it safe to say you're a California guy through and through?
Pretty much.
Were you born in San Jose?
Oregon.
Oregon, oh, okay. What part of Oregon?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, no kidding.
But most of my life since age 3 or 5, I believe, has been in California.
Yeah. What kinds of things, when you think about growing up in California, you had this engineering background. Were you more a math guy? Were you more an arts guy? What kinds of things?
More math and science.
Yeah. What kinds of things did you do to stay interested, to keep your mind moving forward?
You mean? I always do the technical. There's always working on websites or programming tools or what have you. And so engineering is quite similar just to programming.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Creating fancy spreadsheets for putting together all my the whiskey competition and arranging what have you, or creating tools online for the brands that sign up and create their spreadsheets and automate the process to put together the pour list and the event programs.
So it seems like all this experience kind of intersects then, and you've all this kind of history and kind of career that you've built. You're able to use these tools pretty regularly.
No matter what your experience is in life, there's always there's not just a pigeonhole. You can always use things throughout different realms, but just being able to manage, understanding how things work, it makes it easier to manage other people or hire other people to put together your programs or your tools or what have you.
That inquisitive nature, kind of that technical. So, my parents are kind of different. One is very business, operational oriented, and then my mom's really artistic, San Francisco woman.
Mm-hmm.
So when you talk about that spread, what kinds of industries were your parents in?
Let's see. My dad, my mom did nursing for a while. My dad is actually a minister.
No kidding.
Yes, a preacher. Yes, and so so I have a religious background. I do enjoy religion. It's
any particular denomination?
It's a non-denominational Christian religion.
Yeah.
But so I find religion in general of the world is very fascinating.
Yeah. What do you find fascinating about it? I think it's immensely fascinating as well.
Well, the need for people to have a belief in a higher being, a power, where life goes, the purpose of life.
Right.
And that's just how the human mind works, or what inspires it, or what keeps it going. I mean, it's also amazing how people are just so easily brainwashed.
Sure.
How religion has caused so much trouble in the world.
Yeah.
Because people don't, they blindly follow. It all shows how the mind, how magnificent it is, how it works, and how it has to be trained and fed and properly nourished, so that people learn to think critically for themselves.
Yeah, that's an amazing thing. Is that we often, I think about the brainwashing bit about religion, but at the same point, giving you some sense of what your existence is about. It's very powerful and can be a positive thing. Mm-hmm. For you, do you like because there's very, very strict and by the book religion, but there's also kind of more secular thinking, introduces nature and things. Do you fancy yourself someone that's got a little wider perspective on the world?
I tend to think a little bit wider, a little bit more open-minded, realizing that you can always be wrong.
Sure. That's a great thing to know.
Yeah. We're always learning more. I mean, it's just so fascinating about the, diet and high fat and low fat and what we keep learning about that we were wrong about before.
Yeah.
And
it does change. It's kind of trends in that respect. Was it always, or was it something that your father wanted you to kind of follow in those footsteps, or was he much more open to you pursuing whatever you wanted to pursue?
Absolutely. He was, there's no pigeonholing there. And then that's part of it is the religion was very based on knowing things for yourself, proving everything for yourself, not just believing what you heard. And so it was kind of a Bible basics, but at the same time they wanted people to know what was in the Bible, and not just take somebody's word for it.
That's pretty impressive, to be honest. Is to keep you inquisitive and keep you questioning the world. So it seems like you got this interest in how things work, which it feels like it's a nice blend as well with this kind of more secular thinking, something that gives you maybe this position in the world, all of this stuff. So when you talk about your path, was college really the only path for you? Or did you think about, well, maybe I'll travel the world for a little bit?
No. College was always the way to go. I was always kind of an engineering type, and so it was never a question, where am I going to go or what am I going to study? Right. I was always known I'm going to be an engineer of some sort. Yeah. And so it is mechanical or electrical.
Either way, because that's really finding out how something works. Mm-hmm. So that was it. You feel like that was your purpose?
It's what I enjoyed, right? Yeah. Building things, programming, putting stuff together. And so engineering was the obvious choice. Yeah. Went to school in Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, and then obviously the next step would be to go to Bay Area. Yeah,
of course, right? Where the money is. Was the money a motivating factor for you at all?
Money is a motivating factor for the world.
Yeah, well, unfortunately or fortunately, depending. So you made that shift then? You moved into the Bay Area when you finished?
Right, yeah. My first job was IBM.
Oh, yeah. Was it a cultural shift at all, kind of moving? Because California is all pretty loose versus Texas, for example. But did you find that you were really exposed to newer and bigger things in San Fran?
It's kind of close, right? Yeah. It's just, everything transitions. It's, between, I always lived in California. Yeah. So grew up in Livermore area, Santa Barbara area. Then, going from college. Ideally, I love the vicinity between San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara. Yeah. But there's just not the right work for me there. So the next best thing is the Bay Area. There's so vast variety of things to do outdoors and biking, the beach, or Tahoe for skiing. It's hard to, there's a reason.
It's hard to turn your back to it. Yeah. Yes. Makes a lot of sense. Other things that you do enjoy, kind of to take your mind out of the being in the details, take your mind away from the whiskey. Do you bike? Do you hike? Things of that nature?
Bike riding, hiking, swimming, basically good little activity, sports.
The weather's nice.
Yes.
Versus here, I think if you were out biking here at 1 p.m., it'd be unbearable.
Well, it depends. You have to just pedal fast, right? So you have a lot of air to cool you down.
Actually, that makes a lot of sense. See, process change
Mm-hmm.
right there. Just change it. Was family also something that was a big importance to you to start your own family?
Yes, I have a family. I have a wonderful little daughter.
Yeah.
That was, that's just, I don't know. That's something that comes along. It's natural progression. It wasn't something that's like, oh, I have to have a kid, I have to have a family. It just, it wasn't my number one motivation in life.
Just happened.
But it just kind of happens. It's kind of the predestined, or that's what you expect. Yes, you're always working for it. Another thing about the human in general, the human nature is that we're a gregarious creature, so we want to have a companion, right? So I mean, I guess I didn't put that as a number one goal, but yeah, ultimately that is for most of us.
That makes sense. The gregarious nature.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So food, obviously. So when I think, all right, so you're down in the details. You've had multiple jobs in the tech sector, spanning probably over 20 years now. It looks like something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Was food and flavor, was that something that also particularly interested you through that journey?
So yeah, I've always considered myself a foodie. Well, yeah, my long story. I started out, I felt somewhat of a I was an abused child.
Yeah.
My mother, she forced me to eat like millet.
A millet, really?
And oatmeal and other whole grain cereals. I felt abused. All the other kids got, Cocoa Puffs and cornflakes. And here I'm eating this good stuff. And so, but ultimately we had a good diet, low in sugar.
Yeah.
And so, I developed into a foodie. And so, so yeah, food's important, the flavors of food. And that's one thing I like about the whiskeys. A lot of people don't realize how well that does combine with food.
Yeah.
And you go back, you mentioned some people can't handle the smoky whiskeys. So I really enjoy doing whiskey pairing dinners. And a lot of times you get these smoky whiskeys and people who don't like them, you start combining with different kinds of foods. It's like, oh, wow, I can handle the smoky whiskey now.
Yeah.
It's a whole new
You're right. It
perception.
changes it.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I mean, do you like trying to open up their eyes? Is that maybe one of your main objectives?
That's kind of my goals. I always focus on that. So with the engineering background, when I do whiskey presentations, a lot of people like to talk about the history, where it comes from.
Yeah.
That's all nice, but I'm more about the science behind it, the distillation, the chemistry, what makes this, where do the flavors come from?
Yeah.
What is this process? And so I like the technical details. And so that's kind of where I focus on my
I kind of figured, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going back to food briefly, what's something that, because my mom is the same way.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of veg, lots of whole grains, stuff that people only just started eating regularly, like lavender and cucumber salads, right? Like no one did that in the 80s, But when you think of something that is kind of a treat for you, something that maybe is an indulgence, what's something that you kind of return to that does give you that kind of break from healthy eating?
It'd have to always be a good desserts.
Yeah.
I always, when I go to a restaurant, I like to order what's not common.
Yeah.
What's different, what's unique. So, but yeah, and then whiskey goes great with desserts.
Yeah. Chocolate, man.
So yeah, the chocolate, heavy creamy mousse will be good with a slightly or a smoky whiskey.
Yeah.
A bourbon with a creme brulee.
Oh yeah.
And what's fun about that is you kind of have the creme brulee, which has the caramelized top, but you eat that, it's very sweet. It leaves this very sweetness on your tongue. So now you wash that away with a little bit of bourbon.
Yeah.
And it washes the sweetness away, but then you feel the echo of the caramel and vanilla on your tongue. It's like, wow. And the echo, the finish, it just leaves a very pleasant feeling, or aftertaste lingering in the palate.
And you get both a very delicious dessert and a brilliant whiskey. In a way, it's kind of being pretty greedy, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Double dipping, in a way. Well, so then all this stuff makes sense, right? There is the engineering component to how whiskey works, right?
So I like to understand. Okay, how do things pair? What's the technical science behind the pairing? And one thing that's noticed. So do you have things that either complement each other or contrast each other? And this is so you look at how do we dress? How do we put together clothing? Either you have colors that are complementary, or you have a contrasting. Anything in between just doesn't really work.
I see.
And so it seems that's how our palate, our sensory in general works.
Yeah.
And so for the pairing of the food, same thing. It's either contrasting or echoing. Anything in between is like, no, okay.
So you think it resonates the best when it is deeply contrasted or deeply complementary, ultimately?
Yeah, and that seems to be how we in general our perceptions like stuff. Just if we're, go back to how we match our clothes, the same thing.
Yeah, it's interesting. I hadn't thought it's either negative 1-1 or 1-1. If you think about it, kind of like assigning.
So again, it's going back to the kind of the science of how we things work.
Yeah, always returning to that.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, there's this amazing culinary scene, great cocktails and things that are kind of emerging in the Bay Area as you're working. Was there any eye-opening moment where, whether maybe it was with food or was with whiskey, where you're thinking, perhaps this is where I need to go with my career?
So what's my story? Being an engineer, I was always looking for a kind of a side business, something else. I wanted to buy a bar that would have a.
No kidding. Yeah.
I was looking, different bars that had kind of the dance floor area and different aspects. And then this opportunity came along for the Whiskies of the world to take over this business. And I thought, wow, that would be, right up my alley, just because it's event organizing, which I would do as just kind of fun for different activities groups. And so I took over the business. But before that, whiskey was just a strong spirit. It was something I didn't really know what whiskey was at that point. Or I mean, I knew what it was, but it was something I didn't really enjoy. So as I started to learn about it, realize where the flavors came from, learn the science behind it. I started learning how to drink it. And it's like, wow, there's a lot here. And it becomes so easy to all of a sudden, to be a cult following for this liquid.
Well, it's so complex. It's got so much stuff that tastes familiar, but then foreign. It's very just interesting, cerebral.
And so, yes. So when I meet people that say, "Oh, I don't really like whiskey," it's always, wow, because you don't know how to drink it. And so that's where I came from. And so I very much got, on track with this, became a, very strong enthusiast.
Yeah.
And so it's like, wow, this is, it was a good fit for me.
It is. Were you in terms of your relationship with alcohol previous to opening your mind to whiskey, were there things you enjoyed drinking?
Beer and wine.
Beer and wine. Yeah.
A mixed cocktail. But learning how to, get these flavors, as I was talking about, the intense flavors from the whiskey, and put that with food. That's what really resonates with me now.
Yeah. So what was the relationship like? So Whiskies of the World has been a brand for some time, and I know San Francisco, that's one of the main instances of the event, right? Where else is there? Yeah, obviously Austin, there's another instance, perhaps even Houston coming up too, I hear.
Right.
Yeah. So how many cities now in total? Or I know it's grown, but when you started, about how many cities?
Okay. So I started with just San Francisco.
Okay.
Then I wanted to find some new locations to go. And so Austin was the next location. So one thing that it tends to, I'm trying to find where are the whiskey cities, where's a good following to do a show. So Austin was a good city. Yeah. Then we went from Austin, then we did Atlanta, and then Houston, and then somewhere in there added San Jose, which was part of the Bay Area. It's just a big market there. So one thing I noticed about what are the whiskey cities?
Yeah.
They tend to be cities. They're all culinary cities also.
Got it.
Okay. And what makes these culinary cities? It seems that you have a lot of mixing of different cultures.
Oh, good.
And so this makes sense to me. You have different cultures that come together. Their cuisines start getting fused together. You take the best of each, and so you have these different palates. And this is where it seems to be the culinary cities.
Yeah.
And of course, if you're culinary, then also the whiskey, fits in there
That's
because
right.
it's something that you have to have a good palate to really enjoy, get the most from it.
Yeah.
And
That's
so,
well, so then that makes sense. Food again, right? The pairing.
hmm
So what's the newest city?
uh, next on the might add Dallas to the mix. Just
Oh,
makes
yeah.
it easy to go Austin, Houston, Dallas.
Yeah.
Um, but or it could be Florida
Florida. It's a good market there too.
or Arizona.
Arizona. So when you first started, so I'm trying to understand because as the event director, that's the proper title, right? The larger company or the larger owners of Whiskies of the World, what is that structure like? Is that your baby, or are you working for the larger company?
So I took over, bought the Whiskies of the World.
Oh, wow.
And then I made I guess a partnership deal
Yeah.
with International Wine and Spirits, a much bigger company,
Sure.
to work with them in order to expand the business.
Gotcha.
You know,
Because they got the resources.
using
and,
the
right, yeah.
resources, the connections, just to make it easier to grow the business.
Oh, that's incredible. And you're really heavy into organizing each of these cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a big staff that helps you as well?
No, it's a small staff, but that keeps growing
Yeah.
as I try to expand.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. When you think about the experience for someone attending one of the Whiskeys of the World, personally, I love the vibe,
Mm-hmm.
the conviviality, I guess you could say, right? What are some of the things you're aiming to provide for people that come to one of these events?
What makes something memorable is anytime you discover something new. You discover a new whiskey, you discover a new way to enjoy it, or discover that it works well with food. And so when you learn something new, that's always the goal.
Yeah.
To provide a relaxed environment, a fun environment, and something where there's something new.
Yeah. It's kind of incredible. And the other thing that's really interesting about these events is there's the master tasting event where you've got your vendors get exposed to some great juice there. But you also, it seems like you're also really wanting to create an education piece too. You have these master classes, right? So with that side of the pre-tasting piece, what did you look to accomplish there with a classroom setting?
So again, the classroom, you're tasting whiskey, but you're going through it more slowly. You're going as a guided tasting with a master, a guru, and when just somehow in this environment, you get a little bit more out of the product for the majority of people.
Yeah.
You get more depth flavor. You just get a more in-depth tasting because you're being guided through it. You're learning more about it.
Yeah.
And so understanding the background, understanding what goes into the whiskey, it's like art appreciation.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when you learn about art, you learn about the building, architecture, what have you, and all of a sudden you see a Frank Lloyd Wright building, and you know what went into that. You know the different compromises or what goes into building it. You have a lot more appreciation when you see these buildings.
Right.
Same thing with the whiskey. When you understand it better, you understand what goes into it, what makes it, where the flavors come from. It's easier to, oh wow, I can taste it. You get a better appreciation for it.
Yeah. And it kind of connects you to it better too, right? Because whiskey is an extension of the soul in a way, right? It is this thing that transports us back to where it was delivered and distilled and aged and all of that. When you think about that element of whiskey, because of course it's interesting, there's lots of components at play, but when you think about where it came from, the places, the beauty of these particular, whether they're coastlines or whether they're deep valleys in Kentucky, whatever, how do you feel about that piece of it? Do you like the geography of it?
Yeah, I mean, so then you're trying to taste the ocean, the salt water of the ocean, the different environmental aspects from that part of the world, because it's all absorbed into the whiskey. The whiskey breathes, that where it's matured. So definitely that affects it. And knowing where that comes from, you can. Is it imagination? You start tasting it.
That's right.
And it can be the mind is very very
Suggestive.
powerful and suggestive. Yes. And so, but then again, if you know where it comes from, can you taste that because you're looking for it? They can be true.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of people now doing the virtual reality type tastings where they give you the head mask and they're showing you the environment where the whiskey comes from.
Yeah.
Those are fun.
It is, and I think it's an interesting way to add more depth to the aesthetic of whiskey. Having a time and place also helps us connect to people and to the place. And I feel like it's more enjoyable in that sense. Have you, as this proprietor of what is becoming an incredibly popular event, I mean, it's a massive thing. I think it sells out every year in Austin. It's a great attendance. I keep seeing increasing. Also very thankful to be able to, judge and taste these whiskeys. Are you afforded the luxury of going to visit many of these distilleries that produce the whiskeys that are part of your events?
Oh yeah, of course. Anytime I have time, it's they always get the private tour.
Yeah,
which is always fun.
That's not so bad, is it?
The perks of being the event director.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I definitely enjoy that. I definitely enjoy talking to the distillers and looking at the equipment, understanding the science, the physics, chemistry behind each operation.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting and beautifully special place and position to be in as an event director for this event, because, as you say, they'll take you around. You get to taste the good stuff. When you think about whiskeys in general, and not brand aside, this isn't about brand. What are some things that really resonate for you? What are things that you prefer in the flavor of whiskeys?
Oh, that there's a whiskey for every different mood or every different
That's a good point. Yeah.
course of meal. Whiskey goes great with salad, and so, but it's a different whiskey with your salad than a whiskey with with your steak or with your pasta or with your eggplant parmesan.
Yeah.
And so that's it's hard to
very
say.
subjective.
It can't.
How about rainy day? You've had a hard day at work, and you're just at the house, and you want a dram of something. What's the right genre of whiskey for that kind of?
Again, the difference between a bourbon or a malt. Your mood. It just is not depicted necessarily by the rain or the sun, but those are all factors. Nothing in life is black and white. There's always so many different elements, factors that go into it to make up that Fourier series to get the final result.
Yeah.
And it's different every day. So you just can't pigeonhole me.
Yeah. No, I think that, I appreciate that level of detail, right? Because we are, brief tangent, but we are in an era of rhetoric that seems so black and white, right? This is bad, this is good. Well, maybe it's not that simple, because of course it's not that simple. People aren't great, people aren't horrible. Sometimes we're right in the middle. So do you find that whiskey gives you all of those variations, all of that gray area?
And that's another thing that's fun about it is to understanding what makes the flavors, how it comes from, why you have such a vast range of flavor profiles.
Yeah.
It creates the differences.
It really does. Well, you've been in this game for how many years now, the whiskey game?
8 years.
8 years. How many instances in Austin? I think this is like the 4th or 5th, isn't it?
I think the 6th.
The 6th? No, shit.
I have to
Getting older by the minute, I think.
look at that, yes.
When you think about how things have changed, I know whiskey has boomed and it continues to boom. Do you have any particular feelings on the craft segment? I know that when we're judging it, it is a particular panel, or not panel, but it's a particular selection, right? It's a different subset, if you will. Has that been a good thing for whiskeys, having these craft, smaller guys being able to make stuff too?
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. So, the craft distillers always trying to be more creative.
Yeah.
So first of all, understanding the technology. They can do different things or better job earlier because of understanding exactly how the distillation works, what how to get make it a smoother, better spirit from right off the still.
Yeah.
So it doesn't take as long to mature. But basically understanding the sciences. There's always people playing around with the fast maturation, and some technologies or people are discovering it. It's quite interesting. I don't know that it'll always be exact. There'll be a difference between something that's rapidly matured and something that's been sitting in the barrel for 8 years. But it's quite fascinating as science as we learn exactly what creates this the maturation process. What's going down? What is the science? What are the what's getting broken down for this product to absorb the flavors from the wood?
Yeah.
And so Yes, so the craft is doing a great thing, getting a lot more whiskey, a lot more varieties. It just like the beer craft
Right.
from the '80s, and so some will survive and some won't, but it'll be a great experience for everybody along the way.
Yeah, it's good to keep learning and being able to taste new things, and empowering people with really creative minds to try new things. Sometimes it comes out just wonderfully, and sometimes conversely it comes out horribly. But having that is a very, very interesting thing. With your interest in distillation and the science of whiskey, do you ever think that maybe that's a path you want to take, that you would like to operate a distillery, that you'd like to open up a place to do that?
Yeah, I mean that's something that's always in the back of the mind.
Yeah.
If time ever provided, it'd be fun to set up a hobby distillery someplace, and that's how a lot of things start out for people. It starts out as a hobby, and then all of a sudden it's a business, or it grows.
Or you try to make it a business and it ends up being a hobby.
Right.
Either way, I suppose, depending. Well, I think that you'd have a really interesting perspective on the granularity of that science. And sometimes those kinds of minds produce really amazing spirits, Well, so I only have a few questions left for you. And then I know we've got the panel tomorrow, which will be great seeing you again. And we've got an esteemed selection of panelists and judges this year, which will be great. But for you, this is kind of a creative question, and don't take it black and white. This is just in this moment, maybe this month of your life, how are you feeling? And I ask this question of all my guests. So let's say you're at any bar in the world, sipping whatever whiskey it is that you would like to sip, and you could have a conversation with anybody, living or deceased. Now, this doesn't have to be the same person forever, right? But just right now, who's someone you might like to sit there and have a conversation with?
Benjamin Franklin.
Benjamin Franklin. Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, he was incredibly smart. He was an inventor.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a politician, an ambassador.
Yeah.
He was just somebody had a wide breadth of talent and experience, and so he wasn't just a nerdy. His inventions, his technical knowledge was just amazing.
Yeah.
But along with him being a diplomat, an ambassador, he was just a very fascinating individual who would be great to
That'd
have
be
a whiskey
incredible.
with.
Yeah, because he's a thinker, he's a feeler, he's a lover. Apparently, had a good bit of sordid relationships. I think it's great. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Combining all of those things into one guy that could drink a hell of a lot. I'm very sure. Well, so the Whiskies of the World. So we've got Austin's coming up here. I think it's September. I can't remember exactly.
September 16th.
September 16th. And then you've got, when does the San Francisco?
Oh, that comes around March 24th of 2018.
So you're about to put in the Texas gauntlet though, because you got Austin, you got Houston. What are you looking forward to this year with the event having grown to the degree that they have?
What I'm looking forward to is looking forward to meeting a lot more people, introducing. So what makes the events great is that you have a wide range of whiskey drinkers there, from the newbies who are just learning to the enthusiasts to the very experienced drinkers, and so everyone together talking, sharing their passions, tasting together. It creates the right environment where people can learn and they increase their knowledge or their appreciation for whiskey.
Yeah.
And so it's just always trying to get to a newer audience, and also bringing along restaurants to do food pairings and trying to get people to really do the pairing by seeing how these flavors blend on the palate.
You're the facilitator, man. You're bringing these. You're like the matchmaker, bringing the flavors and bringing the minds together. Well, last question for you. As a guy that's exposed to lots of whiskeys, you're coordinating the event, you're sipping, you're getting to socialize, all the great Benjamin Franklin-like things, right? Do you, what kind of level taster do you consider yourself as? Because you mentioned the word guru, which I imagine you're talking about the master distiller level. Where do you think you are now?
Somewhere above the middle.
Yeah.
I enjoy the whiskeys. the more you work at it, the more the taste it, the more you can pick out the flavors. And so I'm somewhere somewhere above the middle. On being able to really distinguish and enjoy and expand or share my appreciation and enthusiasm.
Always learning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Always learning. Well, it's been brilliant to finally get to know you a bit better. We've been running in the same circle here for a few years, and we've got maybe just a few minutes to talk in the past 4 years. Mm-hmm. This has been good to sit down. I'm looking forward to yet another successful year of Whiskies of the World in Austin, in Houston, and thank you so much for letting me play a part in that.
Hey, thanks so much, Mike. It's been great to be here to talk to you.
Really good, man. And sip some more coffee. Yeah. I'm astonished I didn't bring any whiskey. Mm-hmm. My apologies, Douglas. But it is Sunday morning, mm-hmm. Maybe we'll work around that here in the near future. Great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Well, there we have it. Douglas Smith, the event director of Whiskies of the World. Many installments across the United States, San Francisco, Austin, and this Saturday, September 30th in Houston. Great sips. Elise Bleckman's doing a master class. Michael D'Souza is doing a master class. Lots to be learned, lots to be sipped, and it is a great event. Douglas, I love hearing the story. It's great that you came from tech, that chocolate, food, and whiskey all kind of came together and made this profound moment where you said, I'm going to bring amazing experiences and amazing sips to the public in a wonderful, wonderful event. Thank you so much for allowing me to participate, and thank you for taking the time to sit down and chat with me. And thank you for listening to Show to Be with Mike G. And whether you're thinking, I need to finish and binge watch 30 Rock before it leaves Netflix on October 1st, or is it finally time to watch Children of the Corn on Netflix? It probably is. Please keep dancing.